When a woman feels seen, truly seen, in a way that no one else ever dared to look, that's when the attachment begins to take root. Not the kind of shallow recognition where someone notices her curves or compliments her outfit. I'm talking about the kind of seeing that feels like being touched without a single hand being laid on her, the kind where he locks eyes with her and it's like he's not looking at her, he's looking into her, into the parts of her she hides from the world. A woman doesn't get deeply attached because a man sends flowers or says the right things when he wants something. No, she gets attached when he notices the way she fiddles with her fingers when she's nervous, the way her voice dips slightly when she's unsure of herself, the way she pretends she's fine when deep down she's exhausted from being strong for far too long. She attaches when she realizes he's paying attention, real attention, to who she is beyond what's visible. Because here's the truth, a woman wants to be loved not for the mask she wears in daylight, but for the truths she reveals in the dark. And when a man doesn't just tolerate her emotions, but understands them, when he doesn't run away from her complexities but leans into them, she starts to soften. And that softening, that surrender, is the beginning of deep emotional attachment. It's not about scripted words or well-timed romantic gestures. It's about the unspoken things, like when she walks into the room and he looks at her like she's his entire world, not because of the way she looks, but because of the way she feels to him. That kind of gaze, it's rare. And a woman never forgets the man who looked at her like she was poetry and silence and chaos all at once, and still chose to stay. She attaches when he listens to her dreams, not just nods while she speaks, but remembers them days later. When he brings them up in quiet moments, when he encourages her not to shrink, when he reminds her of her worth when she's forgotten it herself, that's when it happens. That's when her heart starts to build a home in him. You see, there's a difference between being admired and being understood. A lot of men admire, but very few take the time to understand. And when a man chooses to understand her, to unravel the knots in her soul gently, without pulling too hard, without judging what he finds, that's when she starts to believe in the kind of love that's real. The kind of love that isn't loud, but lingers. She gets attached when he doesn't just crave her in the night, but respects her in the morning, when he asks her how her day really was and waits for the real answer, when he asks about her childhood not to be polite, but because he wants to know what shaped her, when he asks about the things that made her cry before he ever knew her, and listens like those stories matter just as much as the present. A woman attaches when she feels like she's not just someone's girlfriend or lover, but a soul he's chosen to explore. She attaches when she's not made to feel like too much or too little, but just enough, exactly as she is. When he sees her without filters, without expectations, without needing her to be anything more or less, that's when her walls come down. And it's subtle how it happens. Maybe he notices the way her voice shakes when she talks about something that hurt. Maybe he doesn't say anything, he just pulls her close and lets her rest. Maybe he remembers the little things, like how she takes her tea, or that one song she plays when she's sad. Maybe he doesn't fix anything. He just sits with her in her silence. That kind of presence, that kind of intentional, attentive, soul-level presence, that's what makes a woman feel seen. That's what makes her feel chosen. And when she feels chosen, not because of how she looks or what she gives, but because of who she is, her heart starts to attach. Not out of desperation, not out of loneliness, but because something inside her whispers, I'm safe here. And when a woman feels safe, she stays. There's something incredibly powerful about a woman feeling safe, not just physically, but emotionally. I'm not talking about locking the doors or walking her to her car. I'm talking about the kind of safety that lets her exhale in a world that constantly asks her to hold her breath. When a man becomes a space where she can let her guard down, where she doesn't have to pretend to be strong all the time or perfect or pleasing, that's when something shifts. That's when she begins to attach in a way that's deep, loyal, and lasting. Most women don't walk around looking for someone to protect them. We protect ourselves. We've had to. We've learned how to be our own saviors, how to smile through heartbreak, how to keep going even when our hearts are bleeding. But deep down, every strong woman craves one thing: to not always have to be strong. And when a man comes along who doesn't take advantage of her softness, but protects it, nurtures it, honors it, that's when she starts to feel something she can't ignore. She begins to attach when she realizes that her emotions aren't too much for him, that he won't shut down when she gets quiet or dismiss her when she's overwhelmed. He doesn't call her dramatic for feeling deeply. Instead, he leans in. He pays attention to her energy, not just her words. He notices when she's pulling away, when her laugh doesn't reach her eyes, when she's pretending she's okay. And instead of letting it slide, he asks, gently, talk to me. I'm here. That I'm here matters more than most people understand, because women are used to people leaving when they show their rawness. They're used to having their feelings minimized, their pain dismissed, their fears laughed off. So when a man stays, when he sits in her chaos and doesn't try to fix it or flee from it, but simply holds space for it, that's when she starts to see him as more than just a partner. He becomes her anchor, her shelter. And here's the thing, she doesn't need him to solve her problems. She just needs to know she's not alone in them. That's what builds emotional safety. That's what makes her feel like she can cry in front of him without shame, laugh without restraint, speak without filtering herself. That's when she starts to attach, not because he did something grand, but because he allowed her to be fully, unapologetically, vulnerably herself. There's a quiet intimacy in being able to fall apart in front of someone and know they won't walk away, that they won't see you as weak or unstable or burdensome. They'll just see you as human, beautiful, layered, complex, and worthy of love in all your forms. A woman falls deeply when she realizes that her softness is safe with him, that she can be both strong and sensitive, and he'll never weaponize either against her. She'll test that too, not out of manipulation, but out of fear. She'll say something a little sharper than usual when she's anxious. She'll go quiet when something's wrong, hoping he notices. And if he responds with patience instead of pressure, with understanding instead of anger, that's when her heart starts to whisper, you can trust him. And once that trust takes root, the attachment follows. Because safety doesn't look like grand declarations. It looks like the little things. Checking in on her when she's been distant. Holding her hand when she's too overwhelmed to speak. Being gentle with her even when she's not being gentle with herself. Loving her through the mood swings, the self-doubt, the messy moments. Not taking her need for reassurance as weakness, but as a sign that she cares deeply. A woman attaches when her softness isn't just accepted, it's protected. When she doesn't have to armor up to be loved. When she realizes that she can be her most vulnerable self with a man and still be respected, still be valued, still be adored. That's when she lets go of the walls, the fears, the past wounds, and she gives him something sacred, her emotional nakedness. And when she gives that, once she feels safe enough to reveal the parts of herself no one else has touched, that attachment becomes unbreakable. Because now, love isn't just about butterflies or passion or chemistry. It's about safety. And in a world that constantly asks women to be strong, there is nothing more intimate, more powerful, more lasting than the man who makes her feel safe enough to be soft. And when she feels safe enough to be soft, she stays. You know what leaves a permanent mark on a woman's heart? It's not just love. It's how a man shows up for her when she's not at her best. When she's not glowing, not smiling, not easy to love. When her world is in chaos, when her heart is heavy, when her emotions feel like waves crashing all at once. And instead of walking away or shrinking back, he stays. He doesn't try to silence her pain. He doesn't label her as too emotional or too complicated. He's just there, quietly, fully, without conditions. Because the truth is, a woman doesn't fall deeply for the man who only wants her when she's easy to understand. She falls for the one who holds her hand through her mess. The one who doesn't flinch when she's breaking down. The one who still calls her beautiful when her mascara is smeared and her voice is shaking. That's the man who touches a part of her soul no one else has reached. And it's not always loud, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just his presence that speaks louder than anything else. He sits next to her on the couch while she stares at the floor, lost in her thoughts. He doesn't rush her to talk, doesn't pressure her to explain. He just sits there, steady, and in that silence, she hears everything she needs. I'm not leaving. I'm not scared of your darkness. I'm here. That kind of presence, that kind of patience, it's rare. And when a woman finds it, she holds on. Because to be understood in your chaos, to be loved not in spite of your scars, but through them, that's when attachment is no longer a choice. It becomes a natural, inevitable connection, a pull she doesn't want to resist. You see, most people want the version of you that's polished and peaceful, but a woman attaches deeply to the man who stays when she's neither. When she's overwhelmed, uncertain, when her wounds resurface from places even she doesn't fully understand, and he doesn't try to fix her, he just feels with her, that's when she realizes this man doesn't love the idea of me, he loves the real me. And loving the real her means sitting with her when she's hard to love. It means hearing her talk about the things that broke her without turning it into pity or discomfort. It means asking questions like, what hurt you the most? And not turning away when the answers are raw and unfiltered. It means holding space for her when her emotions don't make sense, not to the world, not even to herself, and letting her know she's still worthy, still whole, still lovable. It's in those moments when she's unraveling, when her emotions don't fit neatly into a sentence, that a woman learns who's truly safe for her heart. And when a man meets her in those moments with tenderness instead of distance, compassion instead of confusion, she forms a bond that's rooted in something much deeper than passion. It's rooted in trust. And trust is the beginning of everything lasting. Because here's what most don't understand. Women don't want a man to rescue them. They want a man who can handle them, not dominate them, not fix them. Just be there. Be steady. Be soft where the world has been harsh. Be calm when everything inside her is screaming. She doesn't need you to have the answers. She just needs to know you're not afraid of her truth. And when she sees that, when she sees you still choosing her on the days she can't even choose herself, something inside her melts. The walls she built to protect herself begin to crumble. The guard she's had up for years finally drops. And what's left is her most fragile, most beautiful self, the part she's only willing to show to someone who's proven they're not going to run when it gets hard. So no, deep emotional attachment doesn't come from perfection. It doesn't come from smooth conversations or romantic dinners. It comes from staying through the storms, from holding her when she's falling apart, from not being scared of her past, her fears, or her triggers, from choosing to see her even when she's not showing her brightest side. A woman gets deeply attached when a man doesn't flinch at her chaos and treats her scars like sacred stories, not flaws. Because when he embraces the parts of her that others tiptoed around, he becomes her peace in the middle of her storm. And when he becomes her peace, she stays. You know, sometimes it's not what a man says that makes a woman fall deeply, it's what he does without saying a word. It's the quiet gestures, the soft moments that seem small to everyone else but mean everything to her. It's the way he watches her when she's not looking, like he's memorizing her. The way he brushes a strand of hair away from her face, not to impress her, but because it's natural to want to care for her. That kind of silent love speaks volumes. It doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't perform. It just is, gentle, steady, and real. A woman doesn't get attached to a man just because he says, I love you. She attaches when he makes her feel loved, consistently, quietly, in ways that wrap around her heart without ever needing to be announced. It's in the little things, like him remembering how she likes her coffee without having to ask, pulling her closer when she's had a long day without needing her to explain why she's drained, kissing her forehead with no agenda, just love, just presence. You see, women are intuitive. They feel energy. They read the gaps between words. She knows when your actions are aligned with your heart. She knows when you mean what you show. And when a man begins to communicate love through his presence, not just his promises, that's when she starts to believe. That's when something inside her begins to trust. Because as much as women value words, we remember how you made us feel even more. And what stays with her isn't the big speeches or the picture-perfect moments. It's that one night when she was feeling off, and instead of asking a million questions, he just held her hand and sat in silence. It's when he noticed she wasn't texting the way she usually does, and instead of getting distant, he gently checked in. That, I noticed, without needing a dramatic explanation. That's intimacy. That's what makes her feel safe, understood, and emotionally seen. There's something deeply magnetic about a man who is emotionally aware, who doesn't need everything spelled out to recognize her needs. A man who knows that when she's quiet, sometimes she just needs his hand on her back, a little tighter than usual. When she's overthinking, he doesn't argue with her mind. He simply grounds her with his presence.